This episode is brought to you by HP Plus. In a world full of smart devices, isn't it about time your printer got smart too? Now printing is smart with HP Plus, and the HP Smart app is how it all happens. You can print from your phone with just a tap, no matter where you are, even from your garage/home office/yoga studio. Huh, that is smart. HP Plus. Learn more about smart printing at hp.com/smart.
All right, you are now tuned in to the Follow Through with Clips and Drew, the True Players Podcast, episode 181. RIP to NBA legend Elgin Baylor. Trade deadline is 1 day away. Are the Clippers and Lakers going to make a move? Draymond makes some erroneous comments. And who's better, AI or Kyrie Irving? It's the Follow Through with Clips and Drew. Drew, kick that intro music. What up, podcast world?
What's up, everybody?
You know what it is. You know where you're at. It is the Follow Through with Clips and Drew, the True Players Podcast, brought to you by basketballnews.com. It is Wednesday, March 24th. We are recording 1 day before the trade deadline. It ends tomorrow, Thursday at noon. Not much has been going on, but before we get into trade talk, I wanted to start the show. This is the second week in a row, Drew. I got to start with something, a little sad. The great Elgin Baylor passed peacefully yesterday. And I just wanted to, we've talked about him a lot on our show, and I'm glad we have, Drew, because, when we did our top shooting guards of all time, we got to bring up some really great memories about Elgin and how good that he was. And, we're hearing all these great NBA legends talk about Elgin. And I thought it was interesting that now finally that story of him being a reserve, and we talked about that on our show, because I felt like that was the most impressive thing I've ever seen or heard about a professional athlete. And we brought that up, months and months ago. But seeing all these other NBA players retweet it, and he was just such an amazing athlete. I obviously didn't get to see him, but he was, Mike before Mike. He was Dr. J before Dr. J. I had the pleasure of meeting him several times working for the Clippers. He was nothing but nice to me. Great NBA player. Suspect general manager, obviously.
He did win GM of the Year in 2006.
That was, again, bring it up. That was the Sam Cassell Phoenix Suns 10-second violation. Okay. I was at that game. It was horrible. But
yeah, he was a GM for 22 years, and it was not great.
And a black GM, which was progressive at the time. Laker great. He's hanging in the rafters. I know what he means to Laker Nation.
It's a sad day. I mean, the man lived a full life. He was 86. Going peacefully, that's something that I've always hoped for, as far as when you look down the road, you're like, if I could pick it, I would like to go on my sleep around 86 to 90 years old. That sounds great.
That would be perfect.
The stories of him that are coming out are great. All of the legends of the game had so much respect for him. And he was really the first guard/forward, if you want to call him that, to play above the rim and have that hang time thing. He wasn't dunking because that wasn't a part of the game really as much. But, if you do watch his highlights, you can see he's head and shoulders athletically beyond most of the players that are in the league at that time. He's the third highest points per game for a season outside of Wilt and Michael Jordan. And that's still the case, even though the NBA has made this huge swing for offense. And James Harden couldn't even beat him out for points per game. And he was averaging 38 and 19 that one season. It's just insane.
Right. No 3-point line either.
Yeah, no 3-point. He scored 70 points without a 3-point line.
And the thing that he never got a chip.
Yeah, he retired. He played 9 games in the year that we actually won one. Finally.
And that was Jerry's first too.
Yeah, I think that might have been his only.
That was his only championships, 1970.
71, I think. And that sucks.
Right.
9 games and you're like, he had a knee problem and he's just like, I think I'm going to bow out, give guys more run. And it's like, dude, can't we just keep him on the bench? What's wrong? What's wrong with having him on the bench?
Just Scalabrini it, dude.
Yeah, put him on the 15th man. Right. Get him out there every once in a while.
It's Elgin. He's been doing this for you guys forever. Let him do it.
Yeah, why not give him the ring? But anyway, his number has been in the rafters for a long time. Well deserving of a statue. It's a sad time to be a Laker fan right now. We lose Elgin, and We're having all our injury woes. Tough time to be a Laker fan, but shout out to Elgin. Mm-hmm. Much love. Rest in peace.
R.I.P. Before we get into Laker talk and Clipper talk, again, trade deadline. Drew and I decided we were going to push this pod back a couple days and wait till the trade deadline, but we wanted to get this show out first and then possibly have our reactions on Saturday if anything big goes down. All the big talk right now is Lowry.
Right.
That's all I keep hearing. I heard today that the Lakers are going to be, are looking at Lowry. I heard Clippers are looking at Drummond now, and Drummond's looking at the Lakers, and Aldridge might go to the Heat. We got to see what's going to happen with these buyouts. And then I also heard that, Norman Powell is up and they might try to package both of them. There's just a lot going on. I know Miami's in the lead for Lowry, right? For whatever reason, Miami's in the lead for a lot of these
apparently
guys.
He loves Jimmy. Him and Jimmy are
they'd be great.
Best friends, apparently.
There was a quote from Jimmy this morning from I think either an All-Star game. Yeah, it was an All-Star game where he was on Lowry's team, and he said, if I'm on Kyle's team, like, I'm winning at life. So, and obviously, if you're going to want to play with anybody, Jimmy's that guy. But making the money work would mean, Duncan or Tyler Hero, and they'd have to give, I forgot who, Dragic would have to go.
Trevor Ariza maybe getting traded for a 12th time.
Trevor Ariza will be packaged in on that deal. Okay, so tell me what you think. I mean, would Lowry push the needle for the Lakers, or does Lowry push the needle for the Heat in the East right now?
I don't think the Lakers need to make a move for Lowry. We clearly still need help in the front court with our bigs, and I do think that has to be a priority. And I think, honestly, Schroeder is very serviceable as our point guard. I like him. I think he's been playing well for us this year. The more interesting thing, now that LeBron has gone down with that ankle injury, which we haven't really discussed on the pod. First and foremost, fuck you, Solomon Hill.
Hey, wait, can you hold up on the Lakers?
He went to U of A. And I was there when he was there. So he's a good guy, and I actually really like Solomon. He's done really well for himself. But the reason I mention that is because LeBron goes down, and it's like, okay, now KCP's up on the trade block. Now we're taking calls on Montrezl Harrell. We're looking at what we can do with Gasol. Maybe Schroeder's on his way out. Like, all these things happen because AD's out, we lose LeBron, and Gasol hasn't played this entire month. He's been out since February. So the reason I bring that up is because now, the worst case scenario, something I've been talking about this whole time, is LeBron. If LeBron stays healthy, I'm a happy guy. And of course, that's no longer the case. He's probably going to be out for a month. But what it does do is it puts some urgency on this trade deadline that we did not have before. As I mentioned, before LeBron's injury, I was like, if we just stay, with our roster, LeBron's good, we bring AD back, I'll be fine. It's not going to be that big of a deal. But now we know that we have to stay relevant in this playoff hunt, and we really can't drop to the 7 seed or below. We really need to avoid the play-in game. Now, if we end up in the 7 through 10 seed for whatever reason, and we don't make any moves, I still think we're going to be fine and we can get out of that scenario. But of course, home court advantage, for what it's worth, is worth something, even if it's not with completely full stadiums. But you don't ever want to have to go through an entire postseason without having home court advantage. And it seems like, the best case scenario for us right now is to survive through this rough patch and maybe make a deal that helps us stay, in the 4, 5, 6 range until everyone is back. And for that reason, especially, Kyle Lowry's great, but I do think other teams could use him and need him more than we do in our scenario. And I wouldn't really want to give up, Schroeder or KCP or Harrell or anybody like that just for Lowry, because I think with our lineup, eventually when the postseason starts and we have everybody back, I don't think that's something that we need to address. It has to be a big man for us, unless, of course, we do something along the lines of going after a scorer in this moment. So before Lowry, I would take like DeRozan, for instance, LA guy. There's been a lot of talk about him being available. I would much rather have DeMar DeRozan coming our way for like a KCP and somebody. I don't know how we would make that work necessarily.
Well, he's definitely not getting bought out. They're not going to buy out DeRozan. There has to be a trade. LaMarcus is definitely going to get bought out.
Right. I mean, unless someone throws him a couple picks before the deadline's up. I agree. But for us, I do think big man first and then maybe scoring option second. And DeMar fits in nicely. So if we do get somebody like DeMar or Oladipo or something like that where we can kind of get them on the cheaper end of things, they actually can play in our lineup when everyone's back, right? So then if we can get DeMar or Oladipo or one of these scorers that's available, Evan Fournier, something like that, they can still play with Schroeder, LeBron, and AD, and everybody's back. So I'm cool with us really taking a hard look at some options. And I do think it's probably important for us to make some sort of move right now, but I don't want it to be a panic situation where we get rid of Harrell or we get rid of Schroeder when we don't necessarily need to do that right now. But it is obviously very concerning, and it's tough to watch the Lakers play right now.
It's because it's depressing, and I tried to watch their game last night against the Pels, and, we had this discussion a few weeks ago when, PG and Kawhi were both out, and they were out for a week and a half, and the Clippers kind of survived that because we have a really good bench and scorers, and everybody kind of stepped up with and this isn't me throwing shade at you or the Lakers right now, but watching that team last night, it just looked like nobody knew what the hell they were doing. Kuzma couldn't create a shot, and Schroeder, wasn't hitting. Defense was horrible. And, if this is going to be, look, LeBron is Superman, right? We're finally seeing in year 18 that this guy's got injured.
And it was a freak injury.
It wasn't like it wasn't coming down on somebody's ankle.
It wasn't a muscle problem.
No, not at all.
Some dude rolled over his foot as he was going for a ball.
And those are the scariest ones too. And obviously he was in pain. High ankle sprains are crazy. LeBron's going to probably try to do everything he can to come back. But I think this is another situation like AD. Like, we don't want to bring this shit back early, right? We don't want to.
Which is why I think the trade market is something that we can make a play with without really, ruining the team that we've built before these injuries happen. My concern really at this point is, even if we get somebody at the trade line or we don't, we're going to be pressuring Anthony Davis to come back sooner than he should. And that's the last thing I want. And I've said before, it doesn't really matter what seed we're in. But I was really being realistic about being 1 through 6 and having us have to do some sort of play-in scenario. Feasibly, we should manage that, no problem, if everyone's healthy. But it's just obviously not something you want to do. You don't want to put any more undue miles on LeBron or Anthony Davis if they are, in fact, still hampering some sort of injury. So it's going to be tight. I think this month in particular, and it's been said, I think last week, that Anthony Davis is going to be reevaluated every 2 weeks and kind of updating that way to see where he's at. I don't expect LeBron to be back this month. Within a month. I mean, that was a really bad ankle sprain. It's also like the way he turned it. He turned it inward, which is always harder to recover from than turning it outward. So I do think it's going to be
5 weeks.
We're in for a few weeks of really tough basketball. And it's regardless of who we play, right? Like, we could be playing Minnesota and losing to the worst teams in the NBA because we're just that bad right now. And for all the talk that I've made about Anthony Davis being out and allowing us to explore our roster and stretch that out, now it's like, okay, that was fine. We were able to be 500 during that time with LeBron in there. With him out, we need to scrap and fight for every single possible win, and it really is going to be dependent upon certain guys stepping up. So now our best players are Schroeder, Harrell, and Kuzma. And we have Wes Matthews in there, who's essentially, I don't know what it is with the wing players that come to us that are supposed to be 3-and-D guys. And the 3 is left at their previous location. Danny Green, we saw it all year. This year it's Wes Matthews. It's like, cool, Wes should be able to hit some threes. He's been doing that his whole career. Nope. So it is in order for us to win games, those guys are going to have to step up immensely and consistently for us to even be anywhere near 500 or even just picking off a couple wins. So I do expect us to be kind of on a losing streak, unless, of course, we can make something kind of magical happen during this trade deadline. But it's tough right now.
It's tough, and you've lost 3 in a row. You have a couple winnable games coming up, but again, like you just said, like, if we're putting everything on Kuzma and Schroeder and Montrez, like, that's just it's not going to happen.
Right.
So, I hope LeBron gets better. The NBA is just so much better and we're not used to this. We're not like, we've never said on our podcast, minus last season when he went down with the groin, that he's out. He's out. Like
2 seasons ago now.
2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
The guys played literally like I think the stat was he's only missed 10% of the games he's ever played, which is ridiculous.
Right.
And that's including playoffs as well. So I hope he gets healthy and gets back soon because again, we want this Clipper-Laker, playoff, and it might happen in a different scenario.
Could be the first round.
Could be 3-6.
Yeah, it could be the first round now.
Which nobody, like NBA doesn't want to see that either.
It's weird, man. The Clippers and Lakers have never played in a playoff series, ever.
I know.
Which is strange, right? It is weird that we've never played. So even if it is a first round matchup, it's not what we want. We're like, oh, cool, let's make this a Western Conference Finals kind of a thing. But, if it happens, it's funny. At this point, I would be very comfortable as a 6 seed going into the playoffs. And to be quite honest, I think that's kind of our goal. If we can stay 5 or 6 throughout this, that will be a huge win for us as an organization.
So the Clippers and Lakers are tied for third at 28 and 16. Denver's in the 5th spot at 26 and 17. Portland 25 and 18. So it's close, man. And you got to get some of these games. Next 10 games, if you could split 5 and 5, but I don't think that's happening.
It's not realistic.
7-3?
That's not realistic.
7-3?
I'm thinking
8-2?
2 to 3 wins out of the next 10. Okay. Which would put us about a month out or so, I think. That is probably realistic.
Okay.
I mean, I would love to be 500. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, 5 and 5. I mean, let's bring it
home. I was going to gauge where you're at.
If we go 5 and 5,
our boy douchebag John was like, "Oh yeah, we'll be fine. 5 and 5." It's like, bro, I really don't think it's going to work like that.
Well, if we're 5 and 5, I'll be on this podcast talking about Dennis Schroeder being MVP.
Yeah, totally.
So that's where we're at this point.
So, I'm tired of talking about Drummond. We don't know where Lowry or Norm's going to work out. George Hill, obviously, we talked about it in the last pod. That's kind of like the only guy I'm really looking at. I'm not sure if that's gonna work either. I am right now staying at, like, I'm fine with how our squad is. The only thing I'm worried about is Patrick Beverley's health. We'll talk about the Clippers here in a minute. Another guy that went down, though, that just took the wind out of my sail was LaMelo. He went down against the Clippers. I was watching that game. He took, he's kind of erratic at the rim sometimes, man. And, it's kind of the same way Steph got hurt the other day, is like trying to draw these fouls and kicking your legs out. Like, this is what happens, man. And LaMelo fell awkwardly on his wrist. I knew it as soon as it happened. He grabbed it as soon as it happened. And then when he shot that first free throw, I knew that he was hurt. I didn't know this would be season ending. And it is on his shooting hand.
And he had surgery the other day.
He just had it today. Was it today or yesterday?
I think it was yesterday.
So he's going to be reevaluated in another 4 weeks, but it's just sad, man. That was the team that we were it sucks.
Well, I mean, the injury bug is hitting everybody right now. I mean, it just seems like this is the time everyone's going down. Embiid is still out. Yeah, I mean, for the Clippers, you still have your guys, which is a great thing to be. It's a great spot to be in right now. If you are a team that is fully healthy, you really should be taking advantage of these top teams that are losing players left and right. I mean, Steph landed on his tailbone on a whatever that metal railing was, because the bench is all spread out over 20 yards now.
It's huge.
So yeah, he's out. Embiid's out. Like, Giannis sat for a little while. The list is super long, and of course you don't want to ever see a guy like LaMelo as a rookie have a really kind of a season-ending seemingly injury like this in a freak scenario again where he fractures his wrist, and that just sucks. And MVP wide open now. Mm-hmm. Rookie of the year, wide open.
Well,
now.
It's down to a couple.
Well, but really,
wide open for Edwards and Halliburton.
It was a lock for. I mean, I really do believe LaMelo had that in the bag. I mean, if he just was playing the way that he has been for the next remaining games of the season, it was going to be his. But now it's Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards, and it's Halliburton, and I don't know. Wiseman got hurt. Like, it's insane how many injuries have happened in the last few weeks.
And they were playing so well, dude. Like, so well, and he was so fun to watch. I hope he gets a speedy recovery. I hope in 4 weeks they say, hey, you might be able to play by the playoffs if they can maintain. I mean, they're going to need more from Graham, and Rozier's going to have to be huge, and Hayward's going to have to step it up.
It's Graham and Devontae Graham and Malik Monk.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that are going to step up, hopefully, for Charlotte, unless, of course, one of them gets traded, because I've heard some stuff about Devontae Graham and Malik Monk.
Right.
Malik Monk scoring, having that kind of sixth man of the year, like this resurgence of his career, which is awesome. There's a good chance that somebody tries to pick one of those guys off. But I think at this point, you really need to shut that down unless you're getting a starting level player in return for Charlotte, right? Because why are you going to give up Devontae Graham or Malik Monk? You need these guys.
Right.
So if you're going to give them up, you would expect Charlotte to have something coming back to them in return.
The other one that I really don't get, and I know we talked about it on the last show, but like the Celtics wanting Aaron Gordon so bad, right? And Aaron Gordon voiced his frustrations last week, demanded a trade. He gave an interview where he was basically just saying like, look, I'm frustrated. We're always losing. He doesn't like he's over the culture down there. He's over it. And you know what? He deserves it. Like, he's been with the squad for a while.
7 years.
7 years. Like, he's paid his dues. And I guess since that's a trend now to tell, your owners that force the trade. So I just don't know if I would give up. I mean, Marcus Smart's the heart of that Celtic team, and I don't think the Celtics are going anywhere this season.
Right.
And I'm not sure if Aaron Gordon's the guy that's gonna,
Yeah, is he the difference maker?
Yeah, like, so it's kind of like, and I don't mean to keep going back to this, but like, it's, Marcus Smart is the Pat Beverly of the Celtics, right? And do you want to get rid of that locker room, that energy guy who's been a part of that franchise for a minute, who the Young Bucks like too, for Aaron Gordon? Now, Aaron Gordon's a nice piece. I'm not saying he's a POS or anything. Like, Aaron Gordon's going to give you 16 a night,
Yeah, and he's athletic, and he brings something to the table that they don't really have for the Celtics, right? They don't have, the explosive wing. They have, Time Lord Robert Williams, who is a hell of a leaper. And I think with Gordon, I mean, unless Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens are aligned in this and they have a specific role for him to play, I don't know why that would be the guy that they're so interested in. But I will say that he's shooting the three much better this year than he has in his entire career. And that's something that we've been talking about. If he can shoot the three at a higher clip, he's a different player and he can evolve that way. We've been hoping that it's been happening over the last few years, and it just hasn't. But this year, quietly, without much notoriety, I think he's close to 40% from three. Mm-hmm. So if he can bring that level of shooting to the Celtics, great. But why giving up Marcus Smart for him doesn't make any sense, because if you are trying to make some sort of push for this year to try and make it another Eastern Conference Finals like they have in the last 4 seasons, they've been 3 out of the 4. They've been in the Eastern Conference Finals. You have to keep Marcus Smart and then also bring in somebody, unless of course you make some sort of play and just say we're done for this year. We're going to look to next year, which nobody in the Celtics organization or fan base is going to be very easy to take, especially because the last few moves that they've made really haven't panned out for them. I mean, the Kemba Walker...
They worked the worst ways.
The Kemba Walker thing, it looks like Charlotte won that deal, right? Terry Rozier is outplaying Kemba significantly, I think, and especially in the last year. And then, of course, you see what's happening with Gordon Hayward in Charlotte, and it's like, damn, where was that? where was that when these guys were there? I mean, Terry showed it. That's the one thing about Terry, is he gave them the opportunity to be like, choose me. I can do this. Right. And they were like, nah, we're good. We're going to take Kemba. And Michael Jordan is getting the best of the Celtics at the very least. He might not get the best of the rest of the league, but he's getting the best out from the Celtics at this point.
Staying in the East, I mean, Miami was doing well. They lost 4 in a row. We were talking about the Raptors earlier. What did you say they're at? They've lost how many in a row?
9 in a row.
9 in a row for the Raps. They got to make a move. And we've talked about it, at length. I just don't know, what you're going to bring back from Kyle that's going to make you guys a better team. Like, if you can get Tyler Hero, okay, that's somebody to build off of. But is that the guy that's going to be the game changer? And then this week came out with Siakam and Nick Nurse getting into a heated argument. And from what he got benched and he got fined $50K. And from what I heard, like Siakam went low blow on Nick.
That's never a good sign.
It's not a good sign that he had to be restrained by his teammates on Nick. And we've seen this, coaches clash a lot. And you had mentioned to me before the show, like, when you're not winning and you're in Tampa, like, this shit kind of happens.
I feel like, it's just one of those scenarios where they've lost 9 in a row. There's all these question marks about players coming or going, and they're living in a place that's a foreign place for them. Like, they're not home. And they haven't been home. Like, if you think about it realistically, they were home for a month and a half, maybe? They got to leave Orlando to go back to Toronto. And it was probably less than that, because they were down in Tampa.
They come back early.
Yeah, they came back down to Tampa for the training camp and stuff. So they've been out of their homes for what we're approaching a year. And that has to be a whole nother thing. I mean, we brought it up from time to time on this podcast. But it's something that can't be understated. Like, nobody else in the NBA is having to do this. And that sucks. It puts them at such a disadvantage. And of course, tempers are always going to rise. You have competitors that love to win, that want to win.
That just won a championship.
That won a championship 2 years ago, that make the playoffs every year, that are consistently underperforming. And, of course, tempers are going to flare. I mean, and look, there's levels of disagreements and arguments and yelling and things like that can happen that are beneficial to a team. And then there's versions of that which may be where this ended up, this kind of interaction between Siakam and Nick Nurse that could be altering, where you go, okay, we might need to get this guy out of here.
Or get rid of Nick, and they're not going to do that.
Why would you get rid of Nick Nurse?
I agree.
Yeah, and so there's
more trade value with Siakam, though.
He's their biggest asset.
Right.
I would say outside of Van Vliet, I suppose. But I think Siakam, the market is much wider for Siakam than it is for Van Vliet, even though Van Vliet, I would argue, is probably the better player.
They bought into him, though. He's their future point guard.
They just re-signed him. Like, all that stuff is good, and I don't think they're going to move Van Vliet at all. But what I'm saying is, like, if you're Toronto, you don't want to give up Siakam, and you don't want this to create a rift within the organization between your head coach and one of your top players. That's not good. But what I am saying is that it really depends on, like, it would have been great to be a fly on the wall in this room and actually get a sense of, like, really what was happening there. Because, frustration bubbling over, fine, that's one thing. If you start, really cutting in and saying some things that really shouldn't be said, then there's a whole nother scenario. And that kind of interaction, as we saw with Kevin Durant and Draymond Green, those kind of, even though that's not a player coach, if that kind of level of disdain is at least being voiced now, you assume it's been going on for a while without it blowing up. So we'll see what happens in Toronto. They're in a very, very interesting spot. But it's just, it has to be so tough for them. And it's, 9 in a row, especially after the Rockets get a win.
Man, they finally got one.
The Rockets lose 20 in a row, and then you're looking down and you're like, oh shit, we're next. Yeah, we've lost 9 in a row. Holy shit.
Let's do a shout out to the Rockets too. Way to pull one out.
Yeah, well done.
Way to pull one out, guys. Obviously they're going to probably make a move with the Oladipo thing. I don't know where he's going to end up. I have no idea. I think
tough scenario for Victor and for the Rockets. I mean, he's going to be a free agent.
Tough time for Silas. That's what it is. Yeah. Like, shit, man.
Yeah, it's funny. Nate McMillan is the first coach to go 8-0 since Lawrence Frank did it for the Nets way back when in 2004. And then you look over at Silas, and it's like he's like the first coach to lose 20 games in a row.
Not a good start
on his debut, and that just sucks for him.
You just did a great segue, Drew, talking about Nate McMillan and the Hawks going 8-0.
They lost.
They did lose. And I couldn't wait to talk about this game, and I'm glad you watched it. Okay.
Yeah, it was a good game.
It was a shitty game until the third quarter. And you know what? The Clippers playing the Hawks. Hawks are, cocky right now. They've won 8 in a row. We came out firing. We were up 10-11 early, and I'm like, oh, this is definitely going to be their first loss in 9 games. And all of a sudden, we just go completely stagnant. I mean, defense was horrific. We couldn't. I mean, shots were getting put up. They just weren't going in. Our stars were not playing well at all. And I could see the frustration with Ty Lue.
Zub was playing great.
We're going to talk about Zub because he's coming up right now.
Yeah, he was playing. He was the only guy playing in that first half.
And he was killing them, right? We got to work on his hands, though. His hands are tough.
He's not bad.
No, if he could keep it high, dog.
Yeah.
It's the shit where Lou and Trez, how and Paul
you could bounce it low.
Yeah, you could bounce it low and they'll pick it up.
Ring it up.
Nah, Zub ain't catching those, and they're trying.
Keep it high.
Yeah, they're trying a little too hard. Threading the needle with Zub doesn't work too well. If you can get it high,
keep it high.
To keep it high.
His hands are not bad.
They're not bad.
Yeah.
And and we'll talk about Zub right now. I think he's playing great. He's in the starting position right now. Ibaka's out with Pat Beverly. He's getting more reps. His numbers are going up. I think he's been playing great, and I do not want this guy to get traded at all. But so we're down 15 going into halftime, right? And it was not looking good to me. I saw the frustration.
You guys went down by 20 in the third.
We were down 15.
I think the start of the third. I think they had a stretch where they got up by 18 or 20.
Okay, it was more than that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, Ty, they're going to come out of this locker room hopefully fired up, right? They come out of the locker room. First play, Paul George, defensive mishap.
Wide open
three by Snell, right? An immediate timeout. I hadn't seen this all year.
Yeah,
right?
that was a good timeout.
It was a great timeout. And Ty Lue said, fuck it. You know what? Coffee, man, Kennard, who hasn't played in a while.
No.
Batum and who am I missing? Hold on.
It was Pat.
Pat. Thank you. My guy, Pat. They come in and just wreak havoc, right?
They took over.
Kennard comes in and just shoots the leather off of the rock. And what's wild is our favorite announcer.
Did he play in the first half? I don't even think he played in the first half.
No, he hasn't played in a couple games.
Yeah.
And they were, he's been in this slump. And what's crazy is Seaman is our guy that is our announcer, the great Brian Siemens,
right?
Had said earlier in the game, like he's like, hey, I've been watching Kennard and he's been looking really good, confident. And we've seen these lapses with Kennard where he comes in and he's like, oh, that's why we paid him $64 million. Like he can get buckets.
Right.
But anyways, he came in, the energy was there, and these guys brought it all the way back. Like ending the third, Kennard hits a half-court shot to get it to 8. And I'm like, oh.
Great half-court shot.
It was perfect. A Euro off 1 foot bucket. And that's where everything changed, right? And not one starter played that whole time. I think Morris got in for a sec.
Yeah. I think PG was in there for a moment.
But he only had 8 points that game.
Yeah.
It was not working. And the fact that Ty saw that, right? And immediately when we start getting buckets like that, he just let him go. Let the kids run, fresh legs. Terrence Mann, dude, and I got to say this, and this might be a long shot. Terrence Mann, to me, after finally getting to see him play and get really quality minutes, he's had these spurts where I'm like, wow, he's really good. Watching him play this game gave me the same sense I had when SGA as a rookie, where I'm like, yo, he's going to be really good. Like, this kid's got it. His motor is there. He's confident in taking his
He's in the right
shots.
spots a lot.
Right. He's got a nose for the ball, like they like to say. And it's one of those things where it's like, I know teams, if we're doing any of these trades, people are asking for T-Man to be involved.
Of course.
And I do not want that to be touched right now. I'm seeing a lot of, just really positive things from him. But going in, finishing the third quarter, being down 8, and then Ty slowly bringing in Kawhi and bringing in the headhunters, dude. We finished off the game winning by 9. And I think this is the kind of game, seeing the smiles on people's face. Nobody was down on the sideline. Patrick, Beverly was the first person this isn't shocking, the first person on the court, to congratulate. Kawhi was out there smiling. We don't see him smile and yell. And I thought this game, and I know it's weird, it's mid-season, like against the Atlanta Hawks, but I think this is a changer for us. I think this is the confidence that T-Man needed to see and that Luke definitely needed to see. And the fact that, like, always ready Pat, right? A serviceable 6'10" guy that could come in and shoot threes.
Got a nice tip dunk in there.
He got one, and that's also that's an energy booster.
Yeah.
So what did you take away from that game? Since you watched it.
Yeah, I think all your points about the Clippers are good. To me,
just good, Drew.
No, solid.
Okay,
very good.
I'll take that.
Excellent. The takeaway for me is that Atlanta's not as good as that 8-0 spurt made it seem.
And he got cocky on the sidelines too, bro.
When you're 8-0, when you have this, this great run, and there's a lot of publicity about the fact that they're 8-0, they only really beat 2 good teams in that run. When you look at their record, like the 8 games that they played, and one of them was against the Lakers, where LeBron rolled his ankle.
Right.
Yeah, in the first quarter-ish, first or second quarter. I think it was the end of the first quarter. And so, as good as they were on that run, it's clear to see that they're not a finished product. It's clear to see why they fired their coach. They still have to figure out what's happening. I mean, they finally have, I think for the first time, their whole roster is healthy. I think Cam Reddish is still out. Mm-hmm. But DeAndre Hunter's back, and he came off the bench with Bogdanovich and Danilo, and that's a hell of a unit to bring off the bench.
We've been saying that the whole year. On paper, they're nice.
No, and I think when Hunter actually fully comes back, because he's on minutes restrictions right now, and he re-enters the lineup, the glaring one for me in that game was Herter was lost. Herter was lost the whole game. And it's like, yo, dude, like,
he started.
Where is that guy's confidence, right? The fact that you, like I said, you touched everything on the Clippers. I don't need to reiterate any of that, except for the fact that Kennard was awesome. And that's why you did trade for him. Because, for a while it was like, well, shit, maybe we should have kept Shamet. But, when Luke is able to get into that sort of a rhythm and he's feeling comfortable out there, it adds the dimension that you want, to where it's not in the second unit, especially where it's not just Lou Will having to shoot the ball every time. And so anyway, I think for Atlanta, that run was huge for them. I mean, it vaulted them into the top 4 or 5 seed in the East.
They're 4th right now.
But there's also like one game separating 5 teams from the 4 to the 8 seed.
To Boston.
Yeah.
8.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's real tight there. So while it was like, wow, look at these Hawks. It's like, well, let's slow down a little bit. They
Pump
beat
the brakes.
Yeah, they beat some decent teams, and they obviously 8-0 is great, and any team in the NBA would be wanting that. It was I think the highest winning streak. Now it's the Bucks. I think have won 7 or 8 in a row now. So huge comeback by the second unit, and I think you may be right about like this being kind of a launching pad for the Clippers to hit some stride. It will be interesting to see, based on some really good performances from guys like Terrence Mann, if you do want to end up turning that into another asset like a Kyle Lowry or like one of these other guys that we're talking about. We'll see what where the front office is obviously by tomorrow, but I do think that if you do keep this team, that can be huge for the second unit. And if you can get Luke coming off the bench and providing 12 to 15 points a game regularly, as well as Terrence Mann doing whatever the hell he was everywhere. He was all over the court that game. That's the depth of the Clippers that makes them very scary. But it's also like that hot and cold thing, right? Because when those guys are not doing that, then it's like, whoa, we need to make a change. So it would be nice to have some more consistency and to see this happening more regularly for those second unit guys.
I think it's Kennard, Luke, and Lou kind of played that same position, and I think it's one night it's going to be Lou, the next night it's going to be Luke, and I just want to see. So we got a back-to-back starting tonight against San Antonio. I want to see how we come out, because this might not age well for us, Drew, but with me saying that this is one of those games that's going to be like a launching pad for us, and we lose tonight, it's going to be awkward.
Yeah.
But I just truly think that this is the game that's going to turn some confidence around for a lot of these guys, and just being able to have these guys like Pat and Coffey, who's also very good. I mean, the guy killed in the G League, and they were ready though, ready to play. They came in and looked great. So we'll see how it turns out tonight. I'm just really stoked on that game. I want Luke to come out and be that guy, that we want on the bench for us.
Well, you brought up the Spurs, which is your next. That's your next matchup here for the next two games. And I recently, it was brought to my attention that Greg Popovich and I have the same haircut.
Oh,
and I try to keep it a little nicer, but when my man bun is down and I have a mask on,
I haven't seen that.
I look exactly like Greg Popovich.
Oh, we might have to. This might be perfect for our boy Juice.
It's not great because when I made that realization, I was like, oh no, I might have to switch some things up. Might have to change up the look.
Oh.
But what that is doing is it's definitely forcing me to keep the hair up, because I looked in the mirror after I saw Popovich on the sidelines and I was like, that's very similar. That's too similar.
Drew, just let me do a side by side, please. At some point,
we can make
a good
happen.
Picture for me. I mean, the bun looks good. The bun looks good.
And I keep the sides tighter than Greg does.
You definitely
But
do.
he's got some nice flowing locks, the gray flowing locks in the back. And when my hair is down, I was like, oh no.
You should ask him what kind of product he uses.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it's nice. Probably French, because he's got all those connections.
All right, I got to bring up two things that we posted on I like to, incorporate what we post on social media into the shows, because I don't like answering people's questions on our posts on Instagram. I'd rather them listen to the show and we answer them here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there has been a couple erroneous comments the past couple days. One of them being Draymond Green, and then the other one with Magic Johnson saying yesterday that Lonzo Ball has the highest IQ in the NBA, and I just don't understand that.
Can Magic just stop?
Chill. Go away for a while,
just
bro.
Go be the Dodgers owner.
Just go away.
We don't need you anymore, dude.
Why are you talking about Lonzo Ball? Did you get rid of him?
Yes.
Yeah, you got rid of him, and he has the highest IQ. Why don't you keep him?
That happened before. Magic, he resigned before all that went down. But yeah, I'm done with Magic.
So chill. But I want to talk about these Draymond comments. And, we made a post on it yesterday. Draymond saying he's the best defensive player ever, right? And a lot of people kind of got heated about it, saying, well, what else is he supposed to say? And I said, well, I get it, being confident.
Yeah, he was on a Warriors Talk podcast that when he made that quote. So it's like, Draymond's always going to say that.
I get it.
Yeah.
But say that you're one of the greatest defensive players to play. You should know he's a very smart guy. Know the history, bro. You are nowhere near Dennis Rodman or Dwight Howard or Akeem or I put Bill Russell in there. And
Bill Russell.
Bill Russell.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. They said there was. They weren't even recording blocks, and he was getting 10, 15 a game.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm fine. I'm fine if he said I'm one of the best defensive players to play in that situation on that team. Yeah, it works out perfectly. I think if you put Akeem or Dennis Rodman, we've seen it, or Dwight Howard, their defensive they're a defensive juggernaut on every single team that they play on. Now, it's how do I put this? You know how people got so upset with LeBron when he's like, yeah, I'm the greatest player of all time. There's actually a debate for that, though, right?
Sure.
There's a valid debate for LeBron saying that.
Right, of course.
It's not like there's 30 guys that are in the debate for it. Well, to some people there might be.
Sure.
But when you can name off the top of your head like 15 guys that are probably Ben Wallace.
Questionable.
Yeah.
That questionably are better than Draymond.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's your take on it?
Yeah, I tend to land on the side of I don't expect him to say anything different. Draymond has always bet on himself. Coming out of Michigan State, nobody thought he was going to be this good. Nobody did.
Right.
And I don't care who the hell drafted him. Jerry West, Mark Jackson. None of those guys thought he was going to be the level of player that he's become. And even still, he's not the all-star that he once was. Right. Like while he is still good defensively, he's not the 2015-2016 Defensive Player of the Year kind of Draymond Green that we have seen in the past. So, look, I think you can take that one season, for instance, of Draymond's defense, right, where he was guarding everybody. He's guarding the centers, he's guarding the wings, and I would put that one season up against a lot of the best seasons that we've seen defensively, and there might be an argument for that. But no, dude, you're not the best defensive player that's ever played the game. Would you take Lou Dort over Draymond right now? Well, Lou Dort is significantly younger.
I'm just saying.
But Scottie Pippen.
Right.
The list is long. We already rattled off quite a few. But when I think of the best defensive player ever, Draymond Green's name is not the first one that pops.
No, he's not the first 20.
Well, I would say he's probably in the top 20. Because of his versatility, because of the fact that he was able to guard centers and also able to guard wings and
okay, maybe top 20.
Yeah, and I think that's fair.
But if he would have said, I'm the greatest defensive player in Warriors history, okay, there's
probably a couple.
There probably is.
Yeah, there's probably a couple.
But just to say ever, like I think it's just a lot. So he got a lot of heat on that, and even like Tony Allen came out and then Draymond threw shade at him, and it was good.
Tony Allen is that was awesome. I will say that Draymond's clapback was that he may be up there as one of the greatest clapback guys that I've ever seen. When people go at him sideways, he comes right back at him, and it's very entertaining. So for that I will give him some elite status.
He thanked Tony Allen for winning a championship, turning Tony Allen on Tony Allen, and there wasn't a response from Tony Allen after that.
I don't think Tony can say anything else. No. I mean, Draymond, while he doesn't score, he certainly has averaged more points than Tony Allen.
I'm surprised Pippen hasn't come out and said something. Normally he's that guy.
Right, yeah. I think Pippen knows that everyone else is saying his name for him.
I mean, and Durant got sensitive again this week, where he took a podcast quote and Steve Kerr, by the way, nipped that in the bud quick in a press conference. So he was on a podcast saying that last year's team was probably his favorite team coach, or is the fun? What do you say is the most fun?
So I listened to the podcast. It's the Real Ones on the Ringer with Raja Bell and one of the Bay Area beat reporters. His name is escaping me, but they do a good job there. And they got Steve Kerr on, and I think Steve he seemed very laid back and comfortable. And when I listened to it, I was like, that's a hell of a statement. Essentially, what he said was last year's team was more fun for him to coach than the team that had Kevin Durant on it for that last season. So like going back 2 years, if you compare the 2019 Warriors season versus this last year, which is the worst season that Warriors have had in 12 years or so, he said that team was more fun to coach. And then what happened was one of the reporters, it's an exciting quote. It's like when you hear that, one of the reporters goes, "Hey, let me tweet that out." That's he misconstrued it. He took it a little bit out of context, and he prefaced it with Kevin Durant's last year. And to be quite honest, I mean, I hit up Crompton about this, see what his thoughts were, and the way that I thought about it was like, what is Steve Kerr supposed to say in that moment? The team that was last year's team is virtually all back this year. He's in the middle of a season where they're trying to fight for a playoff spot. He's a motivational guy, and he has to be looking around at the guys that have been there for the last 2 years struggling, unlike any season that he's had to deal with as a head coach, and looking forward. What is he going to do? Like, yeah, this team sucks. This is a bunch of garbage ass players out here. Like, I can't stand coaching this team. Now, the other side of that. Like if you went and asked all of the head coaches that are great, that have won championships and have been in consecutive finals or, repetitively in the finals, like Phil Jackson or Popovich or Pat Riley, these great head coaches, as you continue to win and be on that mountaintop, it's always going to be harder every year. And trying to, get everyone up and organized and fired up to go out and play again, especially in a season where Durant did not help them with all of the rumors about him leaving. I can't imagine that being fun. Like, why would he say, yeah, that was a lot of fun. We lost two of our greatest players, one left for good and one is injured again. I'm not going to fault Steve Kerr for saying that. I don't know. I don't
fault Steve Kerr. I fault Kevin Durant with taking this guy's quote and saying that's hilarious and clapping it at Steve Kerr.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that Crompton brought up was like how petty Kevin Durant is.
Just let it go.
You won 2 championships. Right. You probably would have won a third if you didn't tear your ACL or Achilles, or Clay didn't tear his ACL. I mean, there was a really good chance that game that Clay went down that they were going to win that game and then go force a game 7 and see what happens there. It just blows me away. It blows me away that Kevin Durant continues to search his name in Twitter and has to say something. But that's just what he is. So, I'm not surprised that Kevin Durant had a clap back or whatever, or decided to say that's hilarious. And that's probably some insight into, like, for Kevin, he goes, that's why I left. Like, that just reaffirms his decision. He goes, like, that's exactly why I'm out of there. Nothing shocking here. Kevin Durant can't play. And when he's not playing, and even when he is playing, he's on Twitter. So this is it's a story being made up of essentially nothing. It was just a casual comment. And Steve Kerr's interview is great. I would encourage anybody to listen to it. It was a lot of fun, especially because Steve Kerr traded Rajah Bell while he was the GM of the Suns, and so that's part of the reason that they had him on is because Rajah was like, "Yo, why'd you trade me?" Yeah. It happened right in the beginning, and so anyway, the reporter that misquoted or removed the context. All right, that's probably not the best. Steve Kerr's comment, probably also not the best, and then Kevin Durant's reaction.
Clearly not the best.
So that's it's just a story because nothing is happening in trade deadline right now. I swear to God, if we had 2 trades happen,
nobody would care about that.
Nobody even notices that comment was made, other than probably the Bay Area fans.
All right. Another thing that we posted, and I lost sleep over this last night, Drew. I did, because I didn't know if I want to bring this up on the pod. I know this is a sensitive subject for a lot of people. And I had to ask Drew's opinion if we should even talk about this. And I had to call a couple of my NBA guys too. I'm like, yo, do I have a valid claim for this? So there was a tweet yesterday that said, is it safe to say that Kyrie Irving is better than Allen Iverson? And nobody wants to admit it, right? And I posted it on our page. And it didn't get a lot of likes, but it got a lot of comments because a lot of people jumped. I think there was something like 50 comments on it. And I didn't say anything because I want people to either listen to the show and I like to just see other people's opinions on it. And I thought about it all day, Drew. And the reason why I thought about it is because there's a very good point to that.
Where do you lie on that?
I lie on this is how, let's put into context the question, right? Who is a better player, Kyrie Irving or Allen Iverson? And Kyrie checks every box to me, okay? Is he a better ball handler? Yeah. Is he a better basketball player? I think, yeah. I do think he is. Is he better at the rim? Yeah, he's that good.
He is an elite finisher at the rim. Right. I have to say that.
Okay, but let me make my point.
Sure.
So the question is, who is a better player, right? So I think I'm okay with saying that if we're going to have this argument, I love Allen Iverson, okay? I love Allen Iverson as much as everybody listening to this show. Now, would I want Kyrie Irving would I want to go to battle, be in the trenches with Kyrie Irving? I'd rather have Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson shows up every single night, played his ass off every single night. Leadership qualities, hell yeah. I'm taking AI. The cultural meaning he had to basketball means a lot to me. But we do this all the time. Like when we did our point guard thing, like let's put into context what the question is. And I think if you take prime AI and prime Kyrie, which what we're kind of like seeing right now, I think Kyrie has an edge. It's a very interesting comparison. They're different players. I think wholeheartedly. I think that's why it ruffles feathers on both sides, because they are very different. While they play the same position, they may be roughly around the same size. Allen Iverson was always the number one.
and he never wanted to be a number 2. Mm-hmm. Kyrie thrives as a number 2, and he tried to be a number 1, and it did not work. Mm-hmm. And he is not a leader.
That's not the question, though.
No. I'm just trying to frame where I come from this, and it's difficult. So I think Allen Iverson's a better defensive player, and I think his toughness level is significantly higher than Kyrie's.
Good point.
And I also think from a scoring point of view, Kyrie's never averaged 30 points a game.
Right.
Allen Iverson did. Now he took a shit ton of shots and was the out and out number 1 option during those years, and never really had a second fiddle. It would have been awesome. I mean, that's the one thing about AI that I think a lot of people think about is like, man, what if he had just somebody else, like another?
They tried, but none of it worked.
And they were never really able to land the guy that would fit with him, because I think he was one of those guys that was like, I'm not going to, like, I'm the number 1. There is no 1A, 1B. I'm number 1, and whoever else is going to be on this team is going to be a 2 or a 3.
Eric Snow,
as far as options go. Right. Yeah, Eric Snow for sure.
Larry Hughes.
To me, it comes down to this. I think Allen Iverson in today's game could very easily replicate what Kyrie is doing. I think it would have been more difficult for Kyrie to play in the early 2000s. And I think he would have struggled to do the same thing that he's doing now then. And I think just free throws alone, Allen Iverson's points per game would leapfrog from 30 to 35.
Right.
And I think if that's the discrepancy between the points per game is like 10 points per game, that to me would make this argument like null and void, and I would go with Allen Iverson. My heart still goes, no, I think Allen Iverson's better. But when I watch Kyrie play, he does shit all the time that I'm like, holy shit.
Right.
Like, what? How did he make that move?
The same way I did it watching Allen Iverson.
So I think the evolution of the game is what we're talking about really with this question. And I think without Allen Iverson, there is no Kyrie. Like, we do this all the time, right? Like, without Elgin Baylor, there's no Dr. J, there's no Michael Jordan.
Good point.
Like, I think that's really how the question is answered, is it goes, well, it's hard to do that comparison. Who's better, who's not? They never got to play against each other. They never got to play in the same era. I think this is just the next iteration of what Allen Iverson would be. So that's the way I end. I, like you, if I'm picking a guy to ride with, to be on my squad,
AI,
it's 100 out of 100, Allen Iverson over Kyrie.
And I'm down for, and again, I like to bring these up too. I like to bring it up to piss people off, because this is I thought it was a really great question, and it got me thinking about it all day. And the other comparison I want to say is, like, Allen Iverson was respected by all of his peers in the NBA. Worldwide respected. Kobe loved this guy. T-Mac loved this guy. Like, everybody loved and respected Allen Iverson. Michael Jordan. And I kind of feel the same way, like, to his peers, Kyrie's like the one. Like, if you ask anybody in the NBA, like, yo, who's got the best handle? Who's the coldest dude to watch right now? They'll probably say Kyrie Irving, and he's respected like that. So I just thought the comparison was so close. We can get into the dynamics of points per game and all that shit, and that obviously that plays a big part in this. But
I think Kyrie was a better offensive player. I think currently right now he can do more with the ball than Allen Iverson could. But I do think, significantly, Allen Iverson's a better defender. So that's where I land.
And I'm with that. And I'm with anybody that says, Allen Iverson or has a play for Kyrie. I just thought it'd be a really good topic to talk about. It goes back into, like, LeBron and MJ. Like, if you can make a good point, there are good points you can make for both of them. Right. Instead of just shutting it down and being like, well, Allen Iverson, like Kobe and like Michael, there's something about AI that we just grew up loving, and the cultural iconness of him, like, it sticks with us and it resonates and it means a lot. So a lot of people just stick with that instead of kind of just having an open discussion like we're having right now. So I thought that'd be fun to bring up. There's probably people saying, oh, fucking clips, you don't know shit. And that's fine. But
yeah, that's fine.
Hopefully we made some decent points, because it is a topic that a lot of people could talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, we're going to finish the show with a new segment that only comes out once a year, and it's called the Drew's March Madness Breakdown. Yeah, he's heavily involved in March Madness, and I know a lot of you are. Yeah, I'm going to let him take the stage on this. I'm turning off the mic, Drew. Go ahead.
Well, with the Lakers being so tough to watch right now, it was a really nice break for me to sit back and watch these college games unfold. And the tournament, we didn't have it last year. The first time in my life, I think first time in my dad's life, that there wasn't March Madness. And I desperately missed it last year. I'm so thankful that it's happening this year. And it's been a hell of a tournament. And I definitely, I got completely involved and engaged. I barely watched any NBA games over the 4 days that they were running the first and second round. So many upsets. Everything was awesome. I placed a bet on Illinois to win, just a little flyer, and they were bounced in the second round by Loyola. I placed a bet on Winthrop to beat Villanova, struck out on that one, but I won my bet for UCLA to beat BYU, and I got a couple more wagers coming in this next round. So I'm fully involved and engaged in March Madness, and it's fucking awesome to have it back. So the first thing that I wanted to bring up in this regard is when I'm watching the tournament and there's all of this alternative routes for high school players to skip college and go, do the overseas thing, go do the G League thing, go do the prep school thing, and not go to college. But when I watch March Madness, I'm thinking to myself, who wouldn't want to be a part of that? Like, what high school player watches that and goes, nah, I think I'm good. Like, I don't want to watch. I don't want to be involved in that. I'd rather go to the G League.
People that want money.
And so, but here's the funny part. Like, the G League bubble happened, and I don't know how many people on the planet watched any of that. I watched a couple because I'm interested in the Ignite team, so I was watching a couple of their games, and it was fine. But the level of play and the level of intensity, of course, is nowhere near what we get with March Madness with these college teams. And so I'm thinking, if I'm a high school player that's a number one pick, and that has the option, I'm that good. I'm that good where colleges want me, and I have this option to go to the G League or go play in Australia or something like that. I would always lean towards that experience because it's never going to be recreated. You're never, ever, ever going to get a chance to be in March Madness after you make that decision to go pro. And so to me, when you're looking at guys like Cade Cunningham, who's going to probably be the number one overall pick, he got to have his experience, and unfortunately he got bounced out. But he can say that was something that I was a part of, and it was awesome. And then Evan Mobley, who's probably number two, him and his brother, the Mobley brothers, crushing it for USC, absolutely obliterated Kansas. Those guys are going to always have that experience, and probably, definitely Evan's gone, but probably both of them are going to be gone to the NBA next year. So I just had that moment where I was like, man, this is so exciting. Like, why wouldn't you want to be a part of that? And of course, money, of course, is the biggest deciding factor. If you're in a situation where you think $100,000 is, what you want, and that's exactly what you want, then fine, of course, go play, wherever they're going to pay you that. And some people might say college can still offer you that, as we've seen, in the past. DeAndre Ayton. So I think that was the number one thing that came across my mind.
What about my guy Landfill? Remember Landfill from Beer Fest? What's his name?
Yeah. You're talking about the guy from Beer Fest and from
Super Troopers.
Farva.
Farva.
I don't know the guy's. I don't know his actual name.
You don't know the Hooper's name?
Oh no, Kurtwig.
There we go.
Krutwig.
That's my guy
for Loyola.
Number 2 pick.
He was a freshman the year that they made it to the Final Four with that crazy run, and I think they were an 11 seed. They're an 8 seed this year. They just bounced out Illinois, which is a big, Chicago, Champaign rivalry, in-state rivalry for Illinois. That guy's the perfect example of this is it for him.
Right. Like, this is it. This is my moment.
He's never going to touch an NBA floor.
It'd be nice.
No, he's just not.
He won't.
He's going to have a great career in Spain. He's going to have a 17-year career in Spain. But he's never going to be on the NBA floor for more than a few minutes and a handshake. But that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about.
Right.
Like, I love being able to sit down and watch this guy who's been there for 4 years, who's currently losing his hair, and does not look anything like an athlete.
He looks 40.
Yeah.
He looks like my tile guy that came.
He looks like if I went out on the court right now. Like, we look the same. I don't know how he has a belly.
Hey, Drew, stop.
He has a beer belly. And it's insane, but he is so good. His footwork. There's a 7-footer on Illinois who's probably also going to be in the NBA next year. Coburn is what they say. His name's spelled Cockburn, nice. But they forget the CK there in the middle.
K is silent.
Yeah. They just go with Coburn. For whatever reason. And that guy is a legit 7-footer, looks every bit of Ben Wallace.
Wait, they changed
and
the CK
Dwight
to
Howard.
A B?
So his name is spelled Cockburn, Cockburn.
That's your name then.
Nobody says Cockburn. Everyone just calls him Coburn. It's
Dude,
the funniest thing.
Cockburn.
It's the funniest thing I've ever. I mean, I get why he would be like, no, it's actually pronounced Coburn. Like we're not. It's always like the guys that whose last name is Wiener. It's the same
Viner.
thing. Yeah,
no, it's Viner.
Call me Weiner. Just call me Weiner. It's actually pronounced Weiner, not Wiener. Please. Anyway, he destroyed this guy, and that guy's, like I said, going to be a bona fide NBA player. He's probably going to play in the league for 10 years, and that guy got worked by Farva. So I love that, and so the next thing that I had to bring up is when I watch March Madness and I watch any college basketball game, it reinvigorates my appreciation for NBA officials. Man, we complain a lot about NBA refs, but they are definitely the cream of the crop because watching March Madness, and I think anyone that's watched it will agree, some of those refs are god awful, making terrible calls constantly. There was a ref who called an out of bounds on the sideline on an offensive rebound. I can't remember the game. I watched fucking 70 games. But one of the games, the guy caught an offensive rebound and was about to go back up, and the ref called him out of bounds. His foot was in bounds by 6 inches.
Like, where are you watching?
And it's like, dude, wait, do you need the glasses? Like, do you have the prescription visor? Like, some of these refs are wearing the masks and the visor out there, and I don't blame them for that. But it's like, it does make me think about how much better NBA officials are and how much more difficult the NBA game is to ref.
It's so hard. It's such a hard job. We don't. And again, if you're new to the show, an NBA ref is a very good friend of Drew and I know how hard that job is. And I think at the college level, that means you're coming from the high school level. Like you're not the cream of the crop.
Most of the college guys stay in college for their entire career, and they never bump up to whatever next level pro, because if you're that good, the NBA is constantly looking for very good refs, and they're going to go, hey, come ref the G League. Get out of the Big Ten and come ref the G League, and then we're going to get you going into the actual NBA. But it does make me really appreciate NBA refs and how tough it is for NBA refs and how bad the college refs are. That was just a random piece. And then the last piece I have, I talked a little bit about Cade and Evan Mobley and these guys that are prospects that are going to be high picks in this next draft. But I did have my eye on a couple players that I saw that I think may not be in the lottery. They may not even be drafted, but players right now that I think are ready for the NBA, and that might be a little surprising, and players I'm going to keep my eye on as their career develops. The first one that leaped off the screen to me was this freshman, Jalen Williams, out of Arkansas. 6'10", 18 years old, vision and passing for days. They run him at the top of the key and just back cut, and he's finding guys left and right. He's a big body. He's not afraid to jump and get rebounds. He's not afraid to bang down low. I think I would be shocked if he doesn't go in the first round, unless there's something about him that I do not know. But that guy, keep your eye on him. Jalen Williams out of Arkansas. He is in the next round, I believe, and we'll have another game on Saturday. Another guy that I don't know about, but I really enjoy watching. Oklahoma has a player called Austin Reeves, and he reminds me a lot of Luke Kennard and a little bit of Hayward. The reason that
I'm taking it, he's white.
He's definitely white. You guessed correctly. His name is Austin Reeves. He's definitely white, but he pretty much handles the ball like the entire time for Oklahoma, and the way that he plays is essentially how that team goes. They ended up losing to Gonzaga. But the way that he plays, man, and the level of shot making that he brings, it's not just your standard white guy, I'm going to shoot it like Doug McDermott or, Kyle Korver. He is attacking the rim. He's hitting floaters. He's drawing double teams and kicking. He can hit a three for sure.
It's very Luke Kennard-ish.
It is. So, and the reason that I said Hayward or Kennard, he doesn't have the athleticism that Hayward had, right? Hayward's like, I'm going to dunk on you back before his ankle injury. And he doesn't have that. But he has this level of confidence that Hayward had at a very early age in Butler. I think Austin Reeves is going to be one of those guys like Luke Kennard, at the very least, that can be a crafty scorer. He's only 6'5", but it's very Luke Kennard-ish, and I like that guy's game. He did play against Corey Kispert. That's a guy that's probably going to be drafted in the first round. He's exactly Doug McDermott. So watch out for Kispert. If you're a team that's in the lower half of the draft and you need shooting, Lakers, then maybe look at Corey Kispert.
What about the Oral Roberts kid?
So Oral Roberts has a couple kids that are really exciting, but undersized.
Right,
They're
too
just
small.
those guys, unfortunately, unless they change their games. Like their point guard is not, he's just tiny. So maybe there's a chance for him. But
Didn't he lead the nation in scoring though?
Yeah, the two guys on Oral Roberts led the nation as a tandem in scoring.
Okay.
They're the number one duo in scoring, and I have a bet on them for this next round. I have a little wager placed on them to advance to the Elite Eight.
Drew's gambling corner.
Yeah, exactly. My boy lives in Michigan, so I'm just like,
is
hit him up.
that Max?
Yeah, exactly. It's our boy Max from Michigan, who's like, it's legal to bet there, so I'm just like, yo, let's slide this in.
And he's definitely in the scene.
Yeah, without a doubt.
He's in that scene.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. Last guy that I want to talk about, this list is short, but it's the random guys that I haven't heard of before that are playing their asses off, that are making a name for themselves. Ethan Thompson out of Oregon State, point guard, 6'5". That guy can play in the NBA right now. He is solid. He's built very well. He moves the ball well. Good passer, good shooter. Ethan Thompson, another guy to pay attention to if you're watching the game this coming. I think the Oregon State plays against our boy Farva and Loyola Chicago, I believe on Saturday. And that guy, he's an NBA point guard, so I wouldn't be shocked if he's somewhere in the league, unless, of course, this is only a small sample size. But I watch him play, and you go, that guy can play in the NBA right now. So my list: Jalen Williams for Arkansas, Austin Reeves for Oklahoma, Corey Kispert for Gonzaga, Ethan Thompson for Oregon State. All of those guys, in my opinion, are NBA level, and we should probably see them play in the league next year. Write
those names down. Those are Drew's picks, and he's sticking to it.
I do have a couple other things.
Oh, Clipper game. It's 5:33, but
no, we're done. It's very, very quick.
Okay.
Steph Curry is the all-time assist leader in Warriors history.
Okay.
Past that, a couple milestones.
Good for you.
Chris Paul, 10,000 assists.
Oh yeah, shout out to CP.
10,000 assist club.
Number 6 now, right?
The 6th ever to do that.
And he's about to catch magic maybe by the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't look like he's going to retire anytime soon, so he's going to keep climbing that list.
Way to go, CP.
And then our boy, Joe Ingles, Chris Kringle,
Joe Ingles.
All-time Utah Jazz three-point leader.
That's crazy.
Think about that. The guy would barely snuck into the NBA.
Made three-pointers?
Made. Three-pointers made. Joe Ingles, all-time leader for the Utah Jazz.
Hornacek was there. He didn't play there a long time.
Yeah, wasn't there very long. Mehmet Okur. That guy was just railing threes. But, you think about who's been their best three-point shooter. It's been him. And his percentages are always right around 40% every year.
Joe Ingles.
So shout out to Joe Ingles.
Yeah.
Those are my last couple things.
That's a great drop, Drew. I appreciate that. I forgot about CP's 10,000. That's a lot. We're going to wrap it up because the Clippers are on their back-to-back. The game has started. Check us out on basketballnews.com. Again, we got a bunch of cool content over there. We're putting out stuff every single day. Follow the podcasts that are on there. Check us out on Clubhouse, basketballnews.com. We're going to take them out. So if you didn't notice last week, our boy Beats by JT, he made us a song with our voices in the beat, and it's hot. So turn it up.
Yeah, that was dope.
And bang it. And RIP to Elgin Baylor. It's the follow through with Clips and Drew, and we're Ghost.
You know what it is, you know where you're at. This is the follow through with Clips and Drew.